إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. The second, for the love of Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam. The third, with your loudest, for the love of Lady Fatima al-Zahra'i alayha salam. Respected elders, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum jami'an wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Allahumma antiqni bil huda wa alhimni at-taqwa ووفقني للتي هي أزكى. اللهم أخرجنا من ظلمات الوهم وأكرمنا بنور الفهم وافتح علينا أبواب رحمتك وانشر علينا خزائن علومك برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. وصل اللهم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين. On this night, the 7th of the holy month of Rajab, we celebrate our beloved 7th Imam, Musa ibn Ja'far al-Kadhim alayhi salam. And although the birth anniversary of our beloved Imam usually coincides in the month of Rajab, but due to the culture that the Shia and followers of the Ahl Bayt have always adopted, which is not to celebrate anything in the month of Safar, even though there is an occasion of birth, out of respect for the mourning and for that period of grief that we commemorate on a yearly basis for 2 months. And if we were to grieve for the entire year, it still would not be enough to show the sadness and to show the calamity that took place on the day of Ashura. So based on this, some of our Shia members or Shia communities have designated the 7th of Rajab to be a commemoration or a celebration for our beloved 7th Imam, to replace the birth anniversary. And to my understanding, the reason the 7th of Rajab was chosen, number one, because Rajab is the 7th calendar month and the 7th day, and 7 is unique in the sense that our Imam is the 7th Imam, so perhaps that's how it came to be that the 7th of Rajab was designated for that celebration. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, by the honor of this great Imam, Babul Hawa'ij ilallah, Musa ibn Ja'far al-Kadhim, to grant us all our wishes, to give our mu'mineen and mu'minat who are sick a hastened shifa, and to protect the ummah, to protect the Muslimeen and Muslimat, mu'mineen and mu'minat all over the world, and to grant us the tawfiq to remain firm on the path of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam by the virtue of this night, the virtue of this Imam who we are celebrating, and by the virtue and honor of a loud salawat upon Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. In light of this celebration, I want to share a few words of advice from our beloved 7th Imam alayhi salam, which he had given to Hisham. In Al-Kafi by Shaykh Al-Kulayni, there's a very, very long advice, several pages, that the Imam alayhi salam gave to Hisham. Hisham ibn al-Hakam was a very respected scholar from the followers and the scholars of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. And he was an expert in theology, in kalam. He would debate the non-Shia and the non-Muslims, and he was very well known for that. So Hisham ibn al-Hakam was once with our beloved 7th Imam alayhi salam. He was a companion of the 6th Imam, then the 7th Imam, salamullahi alayhim ajma'een. And in the presence of the Imam, he began to record these advice. Our Imam tells him, Ya Hisham, and he mentions something. And it was many pieces, as I mentioned, pages long in Al-Kafi. I will share a few of them, inshaAllah, after I loud Salawat ala Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. And I want to make sure that we all understand, as always, I have to repeat this, and make sure that we remember it and keep it in the front of our head, in the back of our head, and present with us. And that is, the words of the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam are not like any other words. They are below the words of the Creator, but they are above the words of the created. They are very special, and they deserve a very special attention. Often people don't necessarily grasp these meanings or don't benefit from them because they lack reflecting on them. It is very important that when we listen to the words of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam is to take them and think about them. Try to read between the lines. Try to go deeper. Not necessarily during the majlis, but even afterwards. As these words are accessible, they're online, and you will find them truly inspiring when you truly grasp their meaning and their essence. He says, Ya Hisham, لو كان في يدك جوزة وقال الناس أنها لؤلؤة ما كان ينفعك. He says, Ya Hisham, if you have a nut in your hand and people around you tell you that this is actually a pearl, that wouldn't benefit you in any way because you know it's a nut, it's not a pearl. ولو كان في يدك لؤلؤة وقال الناس أنها جوزة ما ضرك وأنت تعلم أنها لؤلؤة. It says if you have a pearl in your hand and people around you tell you that no, this is a nut, it would not harm you because you know it's a pearl. Our Imam alayhi salam, employing this very unique analogy, demonstrates a very important principle that many people often overlook in their life. And that is, people's opinions do not change the reality. Opinions of others, their tastes, their likes, their dislikes, their praise, their dispraise, none of that changes the reality. If everyone inside this room were to tell you that the color of this wall is red, and you look at and you see that it's white, but it's not going to change the reality. Never give up your conviction because of the opinion of other people. Never let go of your certainty because of the assumptions of other people. Oftentimes, we allow media, we allow the majority, we allow public opinion to drive and sway how we think. And this is where Imam alayhi salam says, no. You have to see what is in front of you. You have to be aware of what is in front of you and base your judgment on what you see, not based on what other people think. If you reflect right now on our lives as Muslims living in the West, and even Muslims now living in the East, problem is the same due to globalization. How many things that we do on a daily basis because we are swayed by what everyone else thinks? How do we conduct ourselves, conduct our private affairs, our celebrations? How do we conduct many things in life? In fact, how we think and how we see things is affected by what everyone else sees. Especially when something is trending, especially when something is, widely spread. We find ourselves swayed easily by it and overtaken by that very widespread opinion that we see in front of us because it seems appealing. And what makes it appealing is that many people are convinced, and many people take it, and many people buy into it. Imam says, no, no, no. Do not buy into anything unless you know its reality, unless you know its true value. Just because everyone adopts it doesn't make it right. Well, everyone's doing it. If you have to celebrate a wedding, for example, if you had to celebrate a birthday, for example, if you had to do something, whatever it may be, in your personal life, think for a second, what are the customs that you're adopting? Why are you doing things in a specific order? Why can't it be done in this way? Why is it done in this way? Is it because you're convinced that this is the right way to do it? Or is it because this is what everyone does? Oftentimes we find ourselves doing things because that's how everyone else does it, irrespective of whether we are convinced. Sometimes you say, I'm not convinced that this should be done this way, but everyone else does it this way. And one of the underlying reasons why our ummah, as the Muslim ummah, has been behind in many ways is due to that. Is because we often look at what other people have and what other people produce and buy into it and don't feel pride in the pearls that we have in our hands. Many questions I've seen via email, and I've seen in other communities and other centers and other platforms. You probably heard about these questions when we were during the season of the New Year's or the season of Christmas. And the question that was repeated so much by many mu'mineen, mu'minat, muslimeen, muslimat is regarding celebrating Christmas. The Christmas tree. Everyone's trying to find, everyone here metaphorically, not everyone, but many people are trying to find any justification just to have a Christmas tree inside their home. Irrespective of their religious ruling, whether Christmas trees are allowed or not, that's a different story. But I'm talking about, why are we buying into something that is not ours? Why? Why feel, someone was saying, there's a vibe to this. I feel I want to, have this in my house because it gives me a very special vibe. Why? Everyone else is doing it. So it's beautiful and it gives you a good feeling because everyone else is doing it. Keep in mind that everyone else are people that don't share the same values as you do. The problem is you don't recognize the pearl that you have. When you have a celebration of your own, you don't take it as serious. Why are you taking other people's celebration more serious than your own? That means you see what you have as a nut, although it's a pearl. And you see the nut that other people have as a pearl. That is the problem. When will we wake up and realize that what we have is valuable? Some were raising the arguments of, Isa ibn Maryam is one of our anbiya. Subhanallah, you left 124,000 Nabi and you're focused on one Nabi. I never hear you talk about, when is the birthday of Hud alayhi salam? Be honest with yourself, please. No, this is Isa alayhi salam. This is the son of Maryam salam. Of course, Isa is part of our faith. Salamullahi alayhi. But have you asked first and foremost when Isa was born? He was born in June. So celebrate it in June. No. Everyone else is doing it the 25th of December. I'm going to do it at that day. Okay. You want to bring something to your home to symbolize the celebration? Bring a palm tree. Because that's the tree that Maryam shook. Quran says, Jid'an nakhla, right? The palm tree. So if you truly are keen on Isa, celebrate the palm tree. He says, no, they do the other one. See, again, you're not really buying into the pearls that you have and the values that you belong to, but rather it is the others. And this is where our seventh Imam is saying, do not be swayed and misled by that. If what you have is a jewel, is a pearl, then see it that way. Don't see yourself as little because others have something else that they are very keen on and others are more than you. And oftentimes we are taken by numbers, by the majority. Well, everyone does this. Well, you know the Quran never praised the majority in one verse. Just read the Quran from cover to cover. Usually it's the minority that are being praised. وَمَا آمَنَ مَعَهُ إِلَّا قَلِيلٌ. Those who believed with him were only a few, with Nuh. وَقَلِيلٌ مِّنْ عِبَادِيَ الشَّكُورِ. And very few of my ibad are grateful. وَلَكِنْ أَكْثَرُهُمْ لِلْحَقِّ كَارِهُونَ. Most of them despise the haqq. أَكْثَرُهُمْ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. أَكْثَرُهُمْ يَجْهَلُونَ. أَكْثَرُهُمْ. Always أَكْثَرُهُمْ with dispraise. أَكْثَرُهُمْ with dispraise. In fact, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about humanity, He says, إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي خُسْرٍ. All humans are at loss, except, usually the exception is it the smaller number or the higher number? The smaller number. It would be unwise if I said, everyone in this room is invited to a specific occasion except 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I name 90 people out of 100 in this hall. You say, you know what? This is not wise. You could have just invited the 10 without informing the whole community and then saying, except 100 of you. Why would Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say, you know, إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي خُسْرٍ, except the majority? No, except the minority then. So it's always al-qillah, the few who are praised and the majority who are dispraised. So don't fall for the fact that, well, the majority of people that do this are, you know, these people. So therefore, we are doing it because we want to be part of that majority. We have to differentiate between coexistence, between being a good citizen, and between compromising and selling our values for cheap. There are two different things here. Is I want to be part of this country. Okay, nobody said don't be part of this country. Be a positive part of this country. Do the right thing. Be a good citizen. But hold on to your values. Share what you have with others. Be kind to others. Be generous. Be giving. No problem. Islam is all about these values. But don't give your values. Keep your values. Own your values. Do not sell them for cheap. Do not replace them with the values of others. In another hadith, our Imam continues and he says to Hisham, he says, Ya Hisham, ما بعث الله أنبياءه ورسله إلى عباده إلا ليعقلوا عن الله. He says, Oh Hisham, Allah has appointed His prophets and messengers to make people understand Allah. There are two types or two categories of things with respect to what intellect can independently comprehend or cannot comprehend. There are certain things that intellect alone can comprehend and grasp and fathom without the need of any external source. Aql knows that half of 2 is 1. You don't need outside source to tell you that. Aql says that the whole is larger than its parts. Aql, intellect, says that injustice is evil, injustice is good. Aql says that a wise person does not do something in vain. Aql says that a wise person would not do something that defeats their purpose. All these things are dictated and understood by Aql alone. We call them in Arabic al-mustaqillat al-aqliyah. That which is independently understood by Aql. But then there are things that Aql does not know without the guidance of an outside source, such as revelation. What are these things? What is my role as a human being in this life? Allah created me, okay, but why did He create me? What is my role in this dunya? I said this last time, I'm going to say it again. Just reflect with me. This is just a reflection for all of us to reflect on. What is the difference between a purpose and a role? I thought about it, and I said, we always ask about the purpose. What is my purpose? And usually the answer is, well, Quran says, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. I did not create the jinn and the ins except so they can do what? Worship me. But then there's always this automatic question, but what's the purpose of why? Why does Allah want us to worship Him? Oh, because He wants to reward us. But why does He want to reward us? Have you ever been in that why generating another why, conversation with a 5-6-year-old, whatever you tell them, they're going to say, but why is that? Whatever you answer, but why is that? That's because they still have that pure fitrah. That innate nature of curiosity is going to always say, but why? Oh, because Allah loves us. Why does He love us? Why did He even create us? So when we go with all these whys, we will not reach the underlying purpose of our creation. What we will see is something other than the purpose. We may call it purpose, but when I reflected on it, I said, this is not a purpose, this is a role. A role is, what am I supposed to do? What is expected of me in this life? And that's what's important, not the purpose. I'll leave the purpose to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The underlying purpose in why Allah, before creating anything, chose to create us, I'll leave that to Allah. Obviously, He didn't share with us. Because all these things are secondary. If you tell me, well, He created us because, He wanted us to dwell in paradise. And I ask you, but why? Why? Why even create paradise? Allah was always there and He's needless. He doesn't need anyone to be around Him. So why create us? There must be a reason. There must be a purpose. But we are not entitled to know the purpose. We are entitled to know the role. What is my role when I came to this dunya? That is what I need to know. Hence the verse says, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. At least I know this is my role, is to be subservient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the answer to this question, what is my role, is not something that aql can answer. Because aql does not know this. This needs an outside source. Aql doesn't tell me why I was created and for what I was created and what my role is in this life. That's why, what do I need? Anbiya. Aql doesn't tell me that what after death life would be. In fact, aql doesn't even tell me whether there's a life after death or not. Aql by itself, and this is a bit controversial among ulama, but some of our grand ulama say that aql by itself does not conclude that there must be another life after this life. Some say there is, according to the justice of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But others argue that just with aql alone, we may not conclude that it is definitely a must to have a life after this life. And even if we end up knowing or believing there's a life after this life, according to aql, what is that life like? There's no way aql is going to tell you. What is the relationship between this life and that life? There's no way aql can answer that question. What is the effect of our actions in this life and the afterlife? There's no way aql would answer these questions for you. Aql is always going to say, I don't know. So Imam says, alayhi salam, O Hisham, Allah has appointed prophets and messengers to make people understand Allah. In other words, understand what Allah wants from you. And understand where Allah will send you. And understand all the answers to these questions that you have. And then he says, Salamullahi alayhi. He says, Ya Hisham, ما بعث الله أنبياءه ورسله إلى عباده إلا ليعقلوا عن الله فأحسنهم استجابة أحسنهم معرفة لله وأعلمهم بأمر الله أحسنهم عقلا وأعقلهم أرفعهم درجة في الدنيا والآخرة. Then he says, look Hisham, the more they accept and believe in these messengers, the greater is their knowledge of Allah. The wisest among people is he who knows about Allah the most. And then he says, and he who is the most perfect in his aql, in his reasoning, enjoys the highest status among the people in this life and in the hereafter. What we find in this section are 3 and 3. 3 principles that dictate or define our role, and 3 barometers of excellence in achieving that role. Let's go through them one after the other. The first of these principles that define our role in life is what? Is ma'rifatullah, knowing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The second one is perfecting our uqul, And the third is striving to attain the highest statuses in this dunya, of course, statuses of nearness to Allah, and as a result, the same statuses of nearness that will manifest in the hereafter. So three things define our role in life. Number one, ma'rifatullah, knowing Allah. And number two, perfecting our uqul. Perfecting our uqul. And number three, attaining the highest statuses of nearness. But what is the barometer? How do I know that I have ma'rifatullah? And how do I know that I have perfected my aql? And how do I know that inshallah I have reached the highest of statuses, or at least the highest status in the eyes of Allah? This is where the Imam Salamullah alayhi says, and I will reward it just for clarification. He says here in rewarding that how much you know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala depends on how committed you are to His teachings. That is why, what does he say? Salamullahi alayhi. He says, أعلمهم فأحسنهم استجابة أحسنهم معرفة لله. He says, the most knowing of them to Allah are the best in their response to the messages and teachings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So how much I am committed to the teachings of Allah and the Messenger and the Ahlul Bayt shows how much I know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you can never tell me I have so much ma'rifah of Allah, but you're not committed to His divine legislations. You don't really have that true ma'rifah. That true ma'rifah is demonstrated by action. So without these actions, without the adherence, there is no true ma'rifah. It's a superficial ma'rifah. You could be a philosopher in ma'rifatullah. Without action, it's a very superficial ma'rifah. That ma'rifah is not true ma'rifah without adherence and submissiveness and subservience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then the second barometer, perfecting one's aql. How do I know that I have perfected my aql? This is where the Imam Salamullah alayhi says, he says that knowing how much you have perfected your aql depends on how much you know what Allah desires and what He doesn't desire. In other words, knowing what He wants from you, knowing His ahkam. So the first one is adhering to the teachings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It shows that you have ma'rifah. But what shows that you have a perfected aql is the fact that you have understanding of what He likes and what He dislikes. And the third barometer is attaining high degrees. He says that depends on how much you perfected your aql. So perfecting our aql is a means to arriving at the highest of statuses. And here we find that there is a common foundation among these three barometers. And that foundation is what? Is knowing and adhering to divine teachings. These three barometers revolve around this notion. Knowing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, knowing what He likes and what He dislikes, and being committed to these likes and dislikes. That is the summary of what makes a person truly dear and near and close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you don't have to go east, west. You don't have to go and try to discover your role in life. All you need to do is come to the jewels of wisdom that Ahlul Bayt have shared with us and understand these realities at this level. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala expects us to know Him, and demonstrating ma'rifatuhu, His knowledge, is by understanding what He likes and dislikes, and then by implementing it. That is why you find that our Imam alayhimus salam say, الفقه مفتاح البصيرة التفقه في الدين. Imam al-Kadhim alayhi salam in another hadith, it says التفقه في الدين مفتاح البصيرة. The key to insight. This is the door that will open for you the treasures of knowledge and understanding, is tafaqquh, seeking understanding of the religion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, understanding Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, His qualities, and understanding what He wants and what He doesn't want. That is why our ulama give so much emphasis and spend so much years studying the ahkam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. These are not secondary things. These are primary. Why? Because these are going to be the means to excellence and the means to arriving at the highest statuses and degrees and ranks of nearness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We ask Allah, by the honor of our beloved seventh Imam alayhi salam, to grant us the tawfiq to live our life according to the teachings of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. May Allah hasten the glorious reappearance of our beloved 12th Imam. May Allah grant shifa to all those who are ill. May Allah grant tawfiq for all mu'mineen and mu'minat and all their lawful and positive endeavors, insha'Allah. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين.